Mzansi Storytime. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. The story of Varus May Kop. Where is my head? Begins with a man named Stefan Kruger, a farmer with a fiery temper and a life full of secrets. Many years ago, Stefan had a heated argument with a wine seller named Kobus at the town's market. Witnesses claimed Stefan stormed off toward the surrounding vineyards, with his face red with fury. Days later, his wife Helena reported him as missing. After months of searching and waiting, Stefan's lifeless body was found in the nearby vineyard, decapitated. His head was never recovered, and the townsfolk, fearful of the unexplained, buried his body in the local cemetery. But Stefan did not rest. It all started as eerie whispers in the wind. A faint disembodied voice calling out in the dead of night, Varus May Kop. Stefan's first known ghostly appearance was to none other than his estranged wife, Helena. It was a quiet, stormy evening in Worcester. Helena had just finished preparing dinner when she felt a strange chill in the air. The lights flickered, and a faint voice echoed through the corridors of her modest home, Varus May Kop. Helena froze. "Who's there?" she called out, gripping a kitchen knife for protection. As she stepped into the living room, a cold gust swept past her, extinguishing the candles. Then, she saw him. A headless figure standing in the corner, dressed in the same clothes Stefan wore the day he disappeared. "Stefan," she whispered, her voice trembling. The figure raised his arms, and though he had no head, a deep guttural cry erupted, "Varus May Kop, Helena." Helena screamed and fainted. When she awoke, neighbors had gathered, drawn by her cries. But Stefan was gone, leaving behind only muddy footprints leading to the door. One day, on the outskirts of Worcester, farm workers were toiling late into the night. They heard whispers, low mournful cries carried by the wind. One worker, Peter, described the eerie scene vividly. "We were harvesting grapes, just finishing up. Then I saw him standing at the edge of the vineyard. At first I thought it was a drunkard. But as I walked closer I saw his shoulders, his neck, and no head. He turned toward me and I heard him cry, 'Peter, Varus May Kop.'" Peter dropped his tools and ran, shouting warnings to the others. That night no one stayed in the fields after dark. The farm's owner, Mr. Van der Merwe, laughed at the stories until he too heard the mournful wail echoing across the fields. After that, even he refused to go near the vineyard after sunset. One of the most chilling encounters occurred at Worcester Gymnasium, the prestigious school where Stefan's children, Annika and Lucas, were enrolled. The school's old library was a dimly lit room filled with dusty books and creaky furniture. It was infamous for its eerie atmosphere. One evening during a late study session, Lucas and his friends dared each other to venture into the dark passage leading to the library. As they approached the door, the temperature dropped noticeably. "Do you feel that?" Lucas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His friends nodded nervously. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged at the end of the passage. The boys froze in terror as the unmistakable cry echoed, "Lucas, Varus May Kop." The figure moved closer, its headless form illuminated by the flickering hallway light. Screaming, the boys ran back to the main hall, nearly trampling their teacher, Mr. de Clark. When staff members investigated, they found nothing but a trail of faint footprints leading into the library, which had been locked all evening. Seeing how his loved ones reacted towards him, Stefan decided to go to his local church to ask the congregation to help him find his head. He knew that the church hosted night vigils every last Friday of the month. One day during a late-night vigil at the Dutch Reformed Church in Worcester, the congregation had gathered for prayer led by the devout Pastor Hendrik. The evening was solemn with candles casting flickering shadows across the old church's wooden pews. Suddenly a cold gust blew through the sanctuary, extinguishing the candles. The doors creaked open and a dark figure appeared at the threshold. Gasps rippled through the congregation as the headless form stepped inside, its hands raised as it bellowed, "Varus me Kop." Panic ensued. Some congregants screamed while others fell to their knees in prayer. Pastor Hendrik, clutching his Bible, stood firm. "Evil spirit, leave this holy place," he commanded. The ghost stopped, turning toward the pastor. A guttural laugh echoed through the room, sending shivers down everyone's spines. The congregation joined Pastor Hendrik in prayer, their voices rising in unison. After several tense moments, the ghost let out a final ear-piercing wail before vanishing into the night. Following the vigil, sightings of Stefan's ghost ceased in Worcester. But the tale did not end there. Weeks later, reports emerged from the neighboring town of Ceres where a headless figure had been seen wandering the streets of colored areas, once again crying, "Varus me Kop." Still, Stefan did not find his head. He made his way to a popular township in Cape Town. It was midnight when a taxi driver from Kyalitha was driving along a dimly lit stretch of road. Ahead he spotted what appeared to be a hitchhiker standing on the roadside. Slowing his taxi, he rolled down his window to ask where the man was headed. But as his headlights illuminated the figure, the man was headless, his neck a ghastly stump. The ghost turned toward him and bellowed, "Varus me Kop," in a voice that seemed to shake the ground. Terrified, Thabo sped off, his tires screeching as he left the figure behind. One stormy night in a modest home in Port Elizabeth, Anna and her husband Jacques were locked in a heated argument. Dishes clattered and their raised voices echoed through the house. Suddenly the power flickered and a chilling silence enveloped the room. "Did you hear that?" Anna whispered, clutching the counter for support. Jacques frowned. "What now?" Then unmistakably, heavy footsteps resounded on the gravel outside, approaching the kitchen window. Both froze as a deep otherworldly voice called out, "Varus me Kop." Anna gasped, trembling. "Jacques, it's him," she stammered, gripping her husband's arm. They peeked through the curtains, but saw only darkness. The footsteps faded, leaving an eerie silence. And the couple, too terrified to argue again. In Pietermaritzburg, Thabo, a seasoned night security guard, prided himself on keeping his parking lot safe from troublemakers. One evening, he spotted a group of teenagers spray painting graffiti on a nearby wall. "Hey! Get out of here," he shouted, chasing them off with his flashlight. The kids scattered, leaving behind their cans and unfinished artwork. As he returned to his post, Thabo felt a chilling breeze sweep across the lot. Turning, he saw a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the parking lot. The figure was headless, and its ghostly fists shook violently in the air. Thabo's flashlight flickered as the ghost boomed, "Varus me Kop." The sound reverberated through the empty lot, sending Thabo running to his shack where he locked the door and prayed for morning. Then one day in a quiet suburb of Durban, Mrs. Pillay was hanging freshly washed clothes in her backyard. It was mid-afternoon, and the sky was bright, but she felt an unusual chill sweep through her garden. As she bent down to pick up a fallen hanger, she heard it. A raspy voice calling out, "Varus me Kop." Mrs. Pillay turned, her breath hitching. At the far end of the garden, beneath the jacaranda tree, she saw him. A headless figure, his arms outstretched as though searching. Frozen with fear, she stood motionless, as the ghost faded into the shadows. Stefan made his way to Johannesburg. At a primary school in Soweto, children were playing near the park. During their lunch break, when one of them noticed a shadow moving unnaturally fast across the yard. At first they thought it was a prank, until the figure stepped into view, headless and staggering. The children screamed, running toward their teachers. "He's looking for his head," one of them cried. The staff rushed to investigate, but found no one. But the chilling cry, "Varas me kop," echoed faintly through the air, sending shivers down their spines. Even the posh streets of Sandton were not spared from Stefan's relentless search. One night security guards at an affluent estate reviewed CCTV footage after an alarm was triggered. The screen showed a blurry shadowy figure wandering down a pristine driveway. Though the image lacked clarity, it was unmistakable. This was no ordinary intruder. The figure moved awkwardly, its shoulders hunched as though it was struggling under an invisible burden. As it neared the camera, it paused and the faint cry of "Varas me kop" was recorded on the audio feed. Stefan's ghost became a legend that knew no boundaries. Back in Mitchell's Plain, residents reported hearing his cry during power outages. In Lenasia, an elderly shopkeeper claimed to see a headless man wander past his storefront in the dead of night. Even in the remote villages of Limpopo, farmers whispered of a ghostly figure roaming the fields, endlessly searching for his head. Everywhere he appeared, Stefan left fear and intrigue in his wake. His chilling cry, "Varas me kop," became a haunting echo across South Africa, binding urban and rural legends into one terrifying tale. Over the years, parents across the country started using "Varas me kop" to discipline their children. I remember one instance with Mom Joyce and her little son, Sipho, in Soweto in 1987. It was a chilly winter evening in Soweto, and Mom Joyce was at her wits' end. Her 7-year-old son, Sipho, was refusing to clean his room. Toys, schoolbooks and dirty socks were scattered everywhere. "Sipho," she scolded, hands on her hips. "If you don't clean this room right now, Varas me kop will come tonight and take all your toys." Sipho froze, his eyes wide. "Mama, no. He'll take me too." "Only naughty boys who don't listen," Mom Joyce replied sternly. Sipho, terrified of the headless ghost's wrath, hurried to pick up his belongings, shoving them under the bed while constantly glancing over his shoulder. Then the same trick was used by Mrs. Naidoo in Chatsworth in 1990. Mrs. Naidoo's 10-year-old twins, Artai and Kieran, were known for sneaking out after dark to play hide-and-seek with their friends. One night, they returned later than usual, ignoring their mother's repeated warnings about curfews. As they tiptoed into the house, Mrs. Naidoo was waiting with her arms crossed. "You think you're clever? If you don't come back on time tomorrow, Varas me kop will find you in the playground." The twins gasped. "No, Ma. We'll come home before dark, we promise." From then on, they raced home before the streetlights flickered on, haunted by the thought of the ghostly man searching for his head. In another instance, Umpayat used "Varas me kop" to threaten his son Lucas, in 1985. On a farm outside Worcester, Lucas, a mischievous 8-year-old, loved hiding under his bed instead of doing chores. One afternoon, Uncle Pyatt decided to put an end to it. "Lucas," he called out, crouching near the bed. "You better come out and do your work. If you stay there too long, Varas me kop will pull you out." From under the bed, Lucas squeaked, "But Umpayat, he doesn't know where I live." "Oh, he does," Umpayat whispered dramatically. "He knows where all the naughty children hide." Lucas scrambled out, grabbed his broom, and never hid under the bed again. Then stories of Mrs. Hendricks and her daughter Anya in 1993 followed. Mrs. Hendricks had had enough of Anya's messy bedtime routine. Every night, Her 5-year-old daughter would cry and refuse to sleep on time, throwing tantrums and leaving toys everywhere. One more night like this, Anya, Mrs. Hendricks warned, and Vara's makeup will come and look under your bed. Anya gasped, clutching her teddy bear. Under my bed? What does he want? He looks for heads, my girl, Mrs. Hendricks said ominously, and he doesn't care if it's yours. From that night on, Anya went to bed promptly at 7 p.m., her toys neatly tucked away. But if you ask many children who grew up fearing the hauntings of Vara's makeup, you might be surprised to learn that none of them ever encountered him. Only a few children had real-life sightings of the headless figure, but many never saw nor heard the chilling cry in the night. This led many to ask, was Vara's makeup only visible to adults? Was the ghost a spectral figure meant to haunt the grown-ups who knew the history and the fear? Or was it simply the tension and anxiety of the world around them that allowed Stefan's tormented soul to manifest only to those who carried the weight of responsibility? To this day, no one knows why Stefan's head was taken or why his ghost seeks it with such fervor. Some say it was a curse placed on him for his temper and harsh ways. Others believe the head is hidden in one of the vineyards surrounding Worcester, and his ghost will not rest until it is found. Local legend claims that anyone brave or foolish enough to call out Stefan, Vara's Yokop, near the vineyards will awaken his wrath. It is said that if you hear his ghostly voice answer, you must run before he finds you, or you might lose your own head. Today, Vara's makeup is a tale told around campfires, whispered in homes during power outages, and passed down to curious children. It's a reminder of the power of the unknown and a chilling testament to the restless soul of Stefan Kruger. As the story spreads, one thing remains certain. If you hear a voice in the night crying, Vara's makeup, don't look back. You may not like what you see. Mzansi Storytime, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.